So let's start. Welcome to my little seminar. As you can see, it's about drawing presentation slides with a graphic tablet. And oh, there's the jingle again. So we're talking about using earphone view in the right way too. The slides. There we go. Hello. Okay, hi, I'm JCO. I'm gonna tell you as most as I can in our limited time span about mixing music and working with sound. Disclaimer, what is this supposed to tell me? I think, music and mixing music and working with sound in a way that's kind of pleasing for the listener is not an exact science. It's not a science at all. It's a very subjective topic, and what I'm gonna do is I'll try to give you an overview about the absolutely necessary theory you have to know when approaching mixing music. But I'm not so focused on being very precise or very correct, especially regarding things that might be understood a little different. Everybody has his own opinion in the music mixing business, and so correct me if I'm wrong, and just see this as lots of my personal opinions in 72 slides. So as I already told, mixing music is a bottomless pit. There is a lot to say about acoustics. We could spend over an hour speaking about acoustics, room acoustics, etc. Alone. Let's just start with a very rough basics. So what is sound? First question to you all is I tried to make this for the beginner. How experienced are you? Just question to your audience. Okay. That's fine. Okay. If you have any, if you want to know more about a specific subject, just tell me. So sound basically is alternating air pressure. What's coming out of our speakers is just moving air, and changing pressure. It comes in waves. Usually it comes in waves. And imagine some more scientific gibberish here, so we'll skip that. Meet our sine wave. This is sine wave. The little fella here, he is he looks a little insecure with all those people watching. He's telling a little about it. So this is basically what happens when we're listening to stuff. That's a good, Yes, I should know that. This might be just. Just remove this for the moment. It's not so important anyway. Just contemplate this picture while I'm busy working with my accessoires. So, better now? Better? I'm moving around. Okay, fine. So, wave. Goes in somewhere, we'll talk about this later, into the speaker. Speaker moves, air pressure changes, and this air pressure is registered by your ear. There are two aspects about this sound that we hear. First is amplitude, like how high, how much pressure is there moving. That's basically how loud it is. As you can see by our little guy, looks here right. The right one looks much more disturbed, I think. And the second aspect is frequency. So higher frequency means higher note. I know I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but we have to start at the very beginning. So okay. I think you know that. Range of human hearing is somewhere between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. So this is the range of frequencies that we can hear. When you get older, you'll miss up in the higher areas and lose something there. we'll talk about that later more too. So, I brought some sine waves for your enjoyment to give you some impression. Sine waves are nice to talk about because they are pure single frequencies. So here are some. Oh, they're so amazing. It's like test tones. Oh, we just met the resonance frequency of this room. This is great. Did you hear how the last note is? There's one note that's noticeably louder. This one. Do you know why? Well, I'll just tell you. It's because waves are being reflected at walls, especially when we have hard and solid walls like in this room. Those waves travel at a very low speed compared to light, for example, with about 300 meters per second. And when they arrive at hard, solid, flat walls, they're being reflected, and they come back. And if you have, imagine two walls with a distance that matches the wavelength of our wave, then it becomes reflected and it adds on top of each self, becomes reflected again, adds again, and becomes louder and louder and louder. But we'll talk about this later too. That has something to do with room acoustics, and this room obviously sucks. So, yeah, we already had that. To show you how this looks like, same sound example, I'll just use Fubar's great visualization. Let's look at this. Okay, sine wave, great. Play that again. Let's make this maybe a little more, with a little more zoom. So you see higher notes have shorter wavelengths, higher frequency, and lower notes have, well, lower wavelengths. It's pretty obvious, pretty simple actually. So, so much for that. Let's just keep that running. What's really nice about sine waves is that if you have a lot of sine waves at the same time with different frequencies alternating in volume, then you can actually get basically anything like this, for example. Yeah, ordinary music. Let's look at the waveform, just to compare. It looks really messy. You can kind of see it becoming louder and quieter, but there's not much more to see there. So there's another way to look at. It's my personal remix. It's so beautiful. There's another way to look at sound and frequencies, which is much more interesting. And we'll just do an FFT on the sound, and thus we're able to visualize the frequencies which are encoded in the waveforms. I'll just show you. So we need this, I think. Where is it? There we go. So I'll just play the sine wave example again. So as you can see, sine waves are represented by basically by lines here, which are lower and higher. That's just the frequencies we're hearing, single, pure frequencies in case of a sine wave. If we compare that to this, there's a lot more going on here. But it's just, you can understand this as a mixture of sine waves, many sine waves at the same time in the frequency domain. And that's called a spectrum, whatever. So let's continue. This is going much too slow. We have to speed this up a little. So yeah, what's mixing? Mixing is basically adding lots of waves, adding lots of sources, and adding is just what it says. It's just addition. Yeah, it's mathematical. It's addition. You add stuff together. That's what a mixer does. So that means if you have waves that look like this and you add them together, you get silence. So that's just as a side note. This can happen too. So. So how do computers work with sound? We have this great sampling theorem by Nyquist Shannon. This is, well, let's say that what's important is you need sampling. You know what sampling is, basically. Yet you have some analog signal and you have some, you measure the signal with little intervals and store that in representation of numbers. Yeah? Row of numbers. And what's important to know is that if you, how many samples you need for representing frequencies. We already taught about the human ear. The human ear has this range of 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz, approximately. So if you want to have this range and sample material, you need like 40,000 kilohertz sampling rate to represent this accurately. That's what this theorem says. You can check this out on Wikipedia. It's there are many formulas that are quite interesting and many conclusions. And this is also the reason why audio CDs work with a sampling rate of 4.1 kilohertz, because that's sufficient for representing the whole spectrum we need as human listeners. Dogs have a wider range, more ultrasonic area. Okay, so yeah, just some random illustration. Then we have to talk about bit depth. That's very important too, because the range in numbers you have for storing the values you sample is responsible for the dynamics in terms of volume, in terms of level that you can represent. So more is better. 8-bit sucks and more bits are good. So let's just keep it at that for the moment. You might have stumbled upon the unit decibel in that context. It's on every mixer, every audio software. They all work in decibel. Yeah. So what you have to know is that this decibel scale is a logarithmic scale. That means in that case, add 10, and you have twice as much. Yeah? So to say, just you can look that up on Wikipedia too. Relevant for us is add 10, and you perceive stuff as twice as loud. This is something to remember. It's not a rule that you have to follow, but it's a good rule of thumb. Human hearing, if you have a fader and you put it 10 decibels up, then it's twice as loud, perceived as twice as loud. The human ear has a very wide dynamic range, and this also is why 8 bits are just not enough for representing sufficient dynamics. We have a range of about 120 decibel. That is quite a lot when you keep in mind that it's a logarithmic scale. And what's also interesting is that the ear has different sensitivities depending on frequency. There are some frequencies, some ranges where the human ear is much more sensitive than in other areas. Like you need much more power in bass frequencies to perceive them as loud as spoken voice, for example, which happens in a higher range. So yeah, 24-bit are great for your workflow when mixing music, because you have more than this 120 decibel range. You have a lot of headroom. You can make it louder and quieter without losing much quality. Try it with 8-bit; it will be noisy as hell. So yeah, of course we work in stereo. We have one right speaker and one left speaker. Usually, when you're listening, you should sit in such a triangle in front of your speakers. And what's important about that is there are actually two ways by which you determine where a sound is coming from when using two speakers. And the first is, as you might have guessed, you locate it there where it's louder. So if it's louder left, it might come from the left side. But which is very interesting is that the human brain has a way of interpreting the location of sound by registering the location of a sound there where it arrives earlier. So if a sound arrives earlier at your right ear, even if it is just as loud as on the other side, you will perceive it coming from the right. And the other way around too, of course. So you might want to keep that in mind. So, okay, enough of that theoretical stuff. I think that's sufficient for an overview. Because I think that if you work with music in some way, be it Renoise or Fruity Loops or Cubase or whatever, what's much more important is your ears. You have to trust your ears. You have to be honest with yourself and do stuff that sounds good. How exactly it comes that it sounds good or not is not that important. It's all based on much more on personal experience and personal preferences. Because as I said, there are no real rules here. So let's talk a little about what you need when you want to mix music, to make music, or to record music, or whatever. So not much, luckily. First, you need this, ×2. You most likely have those. Then you need such a device. You most likely have one of those too. Then, and it's a little more interesting, you need an audio interface, a sound card, basically, like this. And it should be very noise-free. This is what I say here, signal to noise ratio. It's a value when you look at tech data sheets that describes how far is the signal that you want away from some kind of noise floor. Yeah? So this should be high. It's often measured in decibels too. So if you are thinking about buying something, it doesn't have to be expensive. Just look at those values. And the other aspect is it should have a low distortion factor. It's supposed to be precise in what it does. So what you put in should come out in a mostly unmodified way. So okay, then of course you need very high quality USB cables because this is the thing with digital data. If your digital data lacks a certain quality, then your sound will sound noisy and distorted. There are cables starting in the price range of 329 euros. And so this, it just sounds better. Yes, exactly. So of course your bullshit detector lamps should have gone on now. So, but I think okay, I think you got that. Yeah, there's a lot of gear you don't need, overpriced gear that's supposed to improve something, and you wouldn't hear it anyway. The standard stuff does a fine job. So if you're serious about mixing music, you shouldn't rely on crap like this or crap like that, because yeah, you need a speaker that is very true and linear and precise in what it does. It doesn't have to sound good like hi-fi systems, and it doesn't have to have much bass or something. It just has to be precise. So this is what we want here as a paradigm. Okay, yeah, that's a little more difficult. You need, or it would be good if you have a room that doesn't suck. Already talked a little about that in the beginning. If you have lots of parallel hard walls who tend to reflect sound over and over in your room, you just can do that. And you listen to the reverb happening. If there's lots of reverb, like over there, it's ugly, it's nasty, then you don't want to mix there, because it kills some frequencies and it increases some frequencies. Stuff becomes louder or quieter, and you end up turning your bass up and up and up and up and up, and then you listen to it at revision in the compo, and you think, what the fuck did I do here? Yeah, it's just so mixing in a crappy room almost guarantees that your mix will suck. So pay a little attention to that. And in most living rooms, you can find a position where you have a nice hearing environment. As a rule of thumb, your speakers shouldn't be placed too close to the wall. They should have some room to breathe. And what I said with the hard walls, you can modify your rooms too. Doesn't have to be expensive. There are some household things you can do, like just work with cloth like this. This all helps. And if you want to try a room and to get some impression of how good your room is, you can play, for example, a sine sweep. A sine sweep is just a sine wave going slowly, going up and going down. And you can pay attention to where are the peaks. Are there some frequencies where it suddenly becomes much louder or much quieter? Then you know, those are problematic areas. And this changes when you change your position, and it changes when you change the position of the speakers. So you can experiment around with it, and what you want to achieve is find a position in your room where the sine wave sounds equal over the whole frequency range, not much louder anywhere. It's almost impossible to do, especially with bass frequencies. Well, just for demonstration, I have some sine sweep here, so we can just listen to it and pay attention to what the room does. It's all equally loud. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. We already had that. There it is. I'll show you this at the same time. Now it's becoming nasty. And down again. Pay attention to what happens in the bass area here. And so there was a position where it suddenly became where we had this peak. And this is too low for the speakers, so they begin to suck horribly. Okay. So that's just as a tip, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what it says here. Yeah, if your room really sucks, you might want to consider headphones. Buy better ones, studio headphones, like there are some in the €150 range, which are quite okay if your room sucks. Those are, we're talking about open headphones here in terms of construction, and what I said before applies to headphones too, but be a little careful because headphones give you some kind of an unrealistic impression of sound because, you have a perfect stereo separation. Your left, you can put some signal in your left ear and your right ear doesn't get anything of that. This doesn't happen in real rooms. You always listen with both your ears to both sources. And so, this has some side effects on the impression you get from the music, of course. But otherwise, you can achieve quite good results with headphones too. Yeah, mixing music. Let's do some practical stuff. Yeah, first important rule: if you mix something that sucks in the first place, it will most likely suck after you mixed it too. So you imagine some, like in the example I prepared, but we'll get to that later. Just keep that in mind. You can't do the impossible. You can't do any kind of magic with your mix, and it depends very much on how good your sources are, actually. So when mixing music, what do we want to achieve? There are actually many possibilities. This depends very much on the style of music you're doing and what you want to sound like with your mix. And some goals, for example, are transparency. Transparency is a very nice goal, I think, because transparency means, in terms of mixing, that in your final mix you're able to hear out, to recognize each and every element that's in there. They're all clean, easily discoverable. They don't get in the way of each other. It's pleasant to hear and sounds authentic and open. So that would be transparency. Another approach would be creating a wall of sound. Think of loud, energetic music like hardcore punk or Schranz or those speedier drum and bass things. Those you want to be very, very loud. Yeah, they are supposed to kick you in the belly. Yeah, when you hear them, and it doesn't matter that much that you have no filigrane piano solos in there or something. It's a different approach. Another approach would be doing something extremely shitty for the upcoming underground conference. Well, but that could be really nice because it's very free. Make something that hurts. This could be nice too. So, another rule of thumb that might be true or might not be true: don't do stuff with your shitload of plugins that you have in the average netbook that doesn't help the mix. Don't click through presets of some magic plugin stuff where you don't have the faintest idea what it's doing. Yeah, and if it doesn't sound better, yeah, just don't do it. Just don't do it because I meet many people who think they have to use some techniques in their mixing process because they read about it somewhere or well, have it from some friend who said you have to do this and your mix will be good. That's just not true. Trust in your ears regarding that. So okay, first step. I have prepared a little example. Let's see if this works. I'm using Cubase, by the way. I have to do a little configuration so we can hear something coming out of there. Okay. Whoop. Ah, no. So this resolution sucks. You need lots of monitors for mixing. Lots of screens and flat panels because all this shit's so big. Damn. So here's our track. I tried to make this a little smaller. Damn. Okay. Now it's getting better. You just have to configure it in a way that we can see everything. Okay. So what we have here is just a lot of recordings from some synthesizers and stuff, completely unedited, plain. Looks like the stuff you might get from some band or something if you want to mix something for them, or something you might have made yourself. Those are just ordinary stereo waveforms. And if we take a look at the oh no, I killed the mixer. If you take a look at the mixer, can I grab it like that? No, just that pixel. Okay, so it's all on defaults. It's all on neutral. Everything is in the center. And yeah, so I didn't do anything to that. Let's get a first impression by just listening to this piece of crap I messed there together. And yeah, just to get some feeling for what it sounds like and what it might be supposed to sound like. So there we go. Yeah, okay, so much for that. Thank you. Yeah. First very obvious thing, there's somehow some stuff got into the vocal track, which doesn't seem to be supposed to be there. like this. Yeah. So first good step would be to cut that out, to clean it up a little. So yeah, we just do that quickly. So that's not part of the music. Okay. No, that's not part of the music too. So this looks nice. Okay. Yeah, that's actually the vocals. Okay. No, that's not part of the vocals. So we have to cut that out too. And I can't imagine what this is. So we just we can mute it too, so it won't get played now. Okay, okay, so we cleaned up the vocals. And we were considering step 1, get levels and panning right. Distribute your sources evenly, and as we can see in the mixer, the way it is at the moment, it's clipping and distorting like hell. The stuff is all much too loud. And we see that here. Wider. We have to compensate a little back there, by the way. We have this background noise from the hall too. So it's not the best situation for demonstrating any mixing, of course, here. It's just too loud and too sucky. Anyway, the way I do that normally is I just play the stuff I have in a loop and play with the faders till I think that's okay for now. It's just doing a rough mix. I'll just do that quickly. I'll use my headphones too. So we have the snare drum here, a little to the left, I'm in the breakdown part. Bass drum, and a bass. Where's this bass? Oh, this is very quiet. We have to pimp that later. Okay. Strings. Oh, there's a piano too. And a choir. We have this choir thing here. Also actually 2 tracks. And if we have 2 tracks like this, which are in sync, we can spread it up and fatten it up by putting them left and right. That's a nice trick. It's commonly done when editing vocals too. Record it multiple times and spread it in your stereo field. It fattens up the vocals. So let's try the vocals with a choir. Yeah, almost awesome. So I just linked those together because they're kind of equally loud. Oh, the solo part. Oh, there's some choir intro too. This is too quiet. We fix it here. Oh, it's so sweet. Okay, that should be okay for this first first edit. So we have a rough mix now. I'll play you the original version later again, so you can compare. But okay. So next, coming up next, listen to what you have done and be honest with yourself. I'll do that now. That's very important. So the whole thing together once again. Yeah, okay. So let's continue. It's already getting on my nerves. Yeah. So mighty tool. Equalizers, you might have heard about them. What equalizers do is you can modify audio material in a way that you get certain frequency areas louder or quieter without modifying the rest. So I'll just demonstrate this on the vocals. What is very apparent here is that in this the second part here, the vocals are hard to understand. So I can just try EQs here. That should be, this is what I had in mind when, of course it's not me singing. So, so it doesn't matter much if you do this in Cubase or any other software, by the way. It's always the same. Those things always work the same. So this is an equalizer. Actually, it's 4 equalizers, which we have here. I'll show you. We have 3 parameters. First is gain, making stuff louder or quieter. What we see here is our frequencies. And this is decibels again. How much louder or quieter we make it. Where? Yeah, so just as a proof of concept, I make this very narrow, so the effect will be very local. That's a normal parametric equalizer, by the way. I'll just play the vocals and slide through this frequency range so that you can listen to what happens. This might be too extreme. Oh no, it's okay. So this could be a nice effect for later. But okay, we want to improve it. So what you might have noticed is that there is some kind of tone apparent here. This single note you can hear. I can make higher or lower, like a whistling noise. This comes from this EQ being so spiky. Yeah, this note we can hear is just this frequency we're setting here. And as another rule of thumb, if you work with EQs, try to be not too extreme. Broad curves like this, mild settings, often sound more natural. EQs have some side effects. I won't talk about that now, but you also reduce some artifacts those EQs make. What I want to do here, what I want to achieve here in particular with those vocals is to make them more understandable. Is we have in voices this frequency range, it's somewhere between 4 and 6 kilohertz, where the human ear and human perception is very sensitive for speech. So if I boost this frequency range here, the voice will sound more present and more clear, especially in context with the other instruments. I could also, let's first listen. That's very extreme. Opposite sounds like this. Oh, you don't understand any of the note, sounds muffled. Yeah. So this far too extreme setting should do it, I think. Be a little careful with the S sounds, by the way. There are some, yeah, if your S gets too harsh in such vocals, this can be very, very, very annoying. Especially when played loud. So let's compare. Well, I can understand every word now. It's better now. Okay, another thing that we might try here with equalizer is the bass here. Sounds a little thin. Even though make it louder. Maybe we can boost the bass a little. I'll just try that. So I'll use another EQ. Doesn't matter if I use this or that. They are all the same. I can have some different settings here, but it doesn't matter much. So bass is somewhere here. Of course, we can't really do this in some good way with speakers like this. They are not really good for doing stuff in the bass range, but you can hear it becoming louder in the bass range, I think. This is as low as I would go. Yeah, hit. Instant hit. Okay, next step, we had EQing. Are there any questions about EQing? Any special play? Okay. You basically have to play around with those things. Get some feeling for what they do and how you can use them. This is pretty much a standard toy. You find them everywhere and everybody uses them. But again, as a rule of thumb, if you don't need them, don't use them. Yeah? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, yes, please.
How would you know in which frequency range you should play with the frequencies themselves?
Well, as I explained before, I know that this vocal presence thing happens between 4 and 6 kilohertz, for example.
From general knowledge?
There are books where you can read a little about it. There are many colorful words for describing those ranges, and where you have those diagrams and the low range, and there's the belly, there's the punch, there's the bite or something. Yeah, but it doesn't really help. You have to hear this. You have to use this stuff simply and see if it gets better. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great answering questions by not answering them. So okay, listen to what you have done, and okay, we had that already. Another question?
Is it common to apply the equalizers depending on the position of the song?
Depending, so you mean like changing equalizer settings?
Yes.
Over, well, of course you can do that. All your modern sequencer toys allow you to apply different settings at different positions. I don't know if it's common. I don't think it's that common. But if it's necessary in your song, then why not? Of course.
As you said, some vocals can sound not that nice. I guess one can apply the effect only on the other. positions.
Yes, of course. For example, in our example, if we had, we have this quiet parts here, like this. If I put those vocals here, if they were playing in the quiet part, I wouldn't have to boost them that much. And well, if I had them here and here, I most likely would boost them here and not here. Yeah, so sure, this is would be quite a optional thing to do. We could do that. Okay. Another pretty common toy that you might have stumbled upon when working with some music software are dynamic processors, like gates, expanders, compressors, and limiters, which all follow the same underlying concept. Yeah, let's do, yes. We will approach this topic using behavioral psychology. So meet the dynamic monkey. This is the dynamic monkey. The dynamic monkey is totally in love with music, but he hates too loud music. So this is what the dynamic monkey does. As soon as what he hears becomes too loud, he pulls down his personal private volume slider. And when it stops being too loud, he pushes it up again. And that's basically what a compressor does. And that's basically everything about it. So we have a few standard parameters when controlling compressors, which can all be perfectly understood in terms of this monkey reacting to what he hears. He's very fast and he's very sensible. I'll get back to this slide when it becomes necessary. I'll just show you so you can hear. Let's try the vocal track again. I'll load a plugin. I have in each channel I have here, I can load so-called insert effects. An insert effect is some effects processor that changes the audio material in some way or another that is applied only to this particular track. It's like hooking some module in hardwiring it between your source and the mixer. Yeah, those are insert effects, not too complicated. So I'll load a standard compressor. Again, you will find such things. Where is it? It's somewhere on the other screen. Okay. Find stuff like this in every music software. Renoise has pretty good ones of those standard plugins, by the way. We have, let's just solo the vocals again and select a position where we can hear this pretty well, like this part. We didn't have this part. So what we can see here with the default settings is this is our input signal. This is what gets in. This is what gets out. And this is what the dynamic monkey does. GR stands for gain reduction. As soon as the input signal goes over a certain value, the compressor reduces it. Yeah? And we can see that here. In the gaps, it's up, it doesn't reduce anything. In the loud parts, it becomes quieter. It's not that apparent now. I'll just modify the settings so they become a little more extreme. So like this and like this. This makes it faster. This makes it more extreme. This too. So. Now it's very apparent. If you listen to the breathing sounds in between. The breathing sounds are very quiet. So this is the original. I bypassed the effect, so it's not doing anything now. Listen to the breathing sounds. I'll switch it on again then and just pay attention to how those things that were quiet before become much louder. So I'll switch it on now. So it's obvious. Can you hear that? Okay. If not, tell me. Yeah. Let's take a closer look at those parameters. We have the threshold. The threshold determines how loud it has to be for the compressor to do anything to reduce the signal. The ratio means how tolerant the compressor reacts in terms of reduction. So if I put this very high up like this, then it's very radical. It almost blocks anything out that is louder than my threshold value. I can choose a more moderate setting, so the signal will above the threshold will be reduced a little, but not that much. It's a less apparent effect, but which can help a lot too. Makeup is just for compensation. The compressor makes everything quieter, so after the processing, I make it a lot louder to get back to my original level. And we have those timing things down here. Attack means how long does the compressor need to begin reducing gain when a signal starts quiet and suddenly it becomes very loud, then this is the time the compressor needs to pull down the signal. I think I can show this with the bass again. Or maybe even better with a piano. No, not even better would be the snare. Yeah, the snare is good. So we have a little snare here. Okay. So I'll hook a compressor in here. So see on the screen. First, I'll put it on do nothing mode. So nothing's happening. You can see that here too. Okay, let's make this a little louder for a moment. So I'll now use a very high ratio and pull the threshold down. So what we can hear is that it becomes quieter. So I pull it up again to compensate for that. So now the snare sounds much fuller than before. Compare. That's just because the snare has this small reverb tail, which is in the original signal very quiet, and the compressor makes it louder. So now it is perceived as very loud. Yeah? Yeah? Question? Everything's fine? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have it under control. We're almost done. So when I now additionally increase the attack time to make this I can create a click. So at the beginning of each snare drum, we now have a small period of like 18 milliseconds, I think so those are milliseconds, where the compressor doesn't start yet reducing, and so the result is a loud click. This makes it's great for snare drums. If you do this in a mix with a snare drum, you will hear the snare drum better through the mix, and everything will get a little more punchy and a little more direct. You can do this with bass drums too, to give them more click and more definition. So this is a very common technique. It's often done when processing drums using such tight settings to bring them out a little more. Of course, we have to be careful with such extreme settings because you can easily catch in some distortion. But well, that will be the topic for another time. Let's give a quick look at what else is there. with those things I mentioned so far, you can do a lot. You will, if you only use normal, a little panning, a little levels, a little EQing, and a little compression, you will get good mixes if you do it right, and if your source material is good. What else is there? Basically, polishing effects. Reverbs and delays, for example, if we want to give something more roomy effect. Normally, there is no sound in real world that is really dry, that is completely dry. We have that in studio situation and with software synthesizers, but it's unnatural. Sound always happens in some kind of room, and we're so used to it we don't even realize that there's always some kind of reverb meeting our ear too. So reverb and delay effects can be very important for making stuff, especially when listened to using headphones, sound more natural and more authentic. Yeah, what else is there? There are, of course, many creative effects, which can be good for anything. You can color your mixes, you can make them sound entirely different, like something else. You can give your mixes some lots of different style aspects with those effects. Well, but that would be for another seminar. So we're through. We actually managed to get through in this little time. Yeah, so this is where I have to improvise. So let's listen to the song again, and I think then are there any questions? Something that you want to know? I think we have 2 minutes or something left. Yes, please.
I was just wondering, in short, if you ever let the creative process, if you affect the creative process before mixing in a way so that you don't have to spend as much time mixing. For example, when you think of different instruments to use and what kind of instruments to use, do you ever think of that when you write your music?
Yeah, I absolutely do. In my personal case, when I make music, when I make electronic music, I don't separate the mixing process and the composition process. It's just it just merges because I want it to sound good while I make the music, and well, it works. It's all in the box. It's not complicated to pimp what you have while you're doing it. And I personally find it more enjoyable. There might be many people who work in another way, but that's my personal style. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
You mentioned room acoustics
Yes.
right at the beginning.
Yes.
So, for example, when you're at home and prepare some music, which is supposed to be played on some big PA.
Yes.
So how do I formulate the questions? What are the most important errors which are to avoid when doing things like that?
There are a few things I stumbled upon, especially at demo parties. Yeah? So that's my demo party compo experience. One common error is pushing everything up too loud, brick walling your mix to the get-no, like shit. Yeah, that this doesn't sound good on
like
such
compression
huge PAs.
or something.
Yeah, with lots of compression.
Yeah.
If you there's also mastering. We didn't speak about mastering now, but at the end, when your mix is fine, you can do lots of stuff with your final stereo mix down to make it even better and especially even louder, in particular. My personal experience says be careful with that when playing stuff on big PAs, because I had some releases that were great when being listened to with headphones or in a car or something, but they were just too loud. I couldn't make out any instruments or anything anymore. It was just loud, and this was not nice. Yeah, so I think we finish here. Thank you very much for attending this seminar. It was a lot of fun. I hope that I could give you some inspiration or some new ideas, and that you've found it a little bit enjoyable too. So, meet you at the party with next year. Thank you.